Shifting focus for now. During the war with Israel, Iran unleashed more than 500 ballistic missiles that tore through Israeli airspace during that war. Despite America's and Israel's high-tech defense system and the ceasefire agreement, Iran's missile shadow still looms large. And our next report is getting you the complete story.
On June 13th, Israel launched surprise strikes against Iran, targeting top military commanders, politicians and nuclear scientists. 9 days later, amidst ongoing talks over a nuclear agreement, the US attacked 3 nuclear facilities in Iran, leading to an all-out offensive. Putting the whole of West Asia on its heels, a ceasefire on June 24th ended the war, but tensions remain high. Over the 12-day war, Iran launched more than 500 ballistic missiles at Israel. Among them, 3 were far deadlier than the rest. Cluster missiles designed to fragment mid-air at nearly 7 kilometers high. These warheads rained down dozens of explosive small bombs, each one capable of inflicting severe damage. At least 3 cluster missiles struck 7 Israeli cities. In Tel Aviv's outskirts, 5 towns spread across a 10-kilometer radius were hit in one go. Azur, a small town southeast of Tel Aviv, was also struck. In the southern Israeli city of Beersheva, at least 9 locations were struck, while in the central Israeli city of Rishon LeZion, the warhead released multiple bomblets that scattered across different parts of the city. These were no random launches. They were precise, strategic and historic, marking the first time that this kind of weaponry has been used against Israel. And Iran's arsenal isn't a mystery anymore. From the Qadr missiles to the Khorramshahr, which has a range of 2,000 kilometers and can carry up to 80 cluster bomblets, Tehran has various kinds of missiles that don't just reach Israel but can cause extensive destruction. The 12-day war marked their operational debut, and as Israeli and US jets struck Iran's nuclear facilities, Iran's missile cities stayed untouched. Iran's underground missile cities remain intact, unscathed. Equipped with mobile launchers, drones, ballistic and cruise missiles, they remain operational, ready for deployment and extremely lethal. Tehran says retaliation plans are in place, postponed only because of a ceasefire, with Iran's armed forces major general warning that next time Iran's attacks will paralyze Israel, to a point where even the US may not be able to save them. Iran continues to build its arsenal. Israeli intelligence projects Iran's missile stockpile could reach 8,800 by 2027, potentially exceeding 10,000 by 2028. According to Israeli media reports, during the 12-day war, Israel and the United States fired nearly 200 interceptors, including 93 American THAAD missiles, estimated to cost around $1.2 billion. With an annual production of just 36 to 48, the US used up nearly 2 years' supply in under 11 days. Israel and the United States may have struck Iran's nuclear enrichment site, but Iran's missile shadow still looms large. Its missile cities stay buried and secure, and the threat only grows louder. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Israel has declared revenge against Yemen's Houthis, unleashing a devastating bombing campaign targeting what it calls the backbone of the Houthi military operations. Early on Monday, Israel unleashed strikes dubbed Operation Black Flag. It came after a suspected Houthi attack on a ship in the Red Sea and marks one of Israel's largest military actions in Yemen to date. Overnight, the skies above Yemen lit up with explosions. The Israeli Defense Forces say they targeted the ports of Hodeidah, Ras Issa, Al Salif. The IDF also claimed to have hit major power station at Ras Kanatib power station. The IDF claims these ports were being used by the Houthis to transfer weapons from Iran. Weapons, it says, have been used to launch drone and missile attacks against Israel in recent weeks. Loud blasts were reported across these coastal areas as Israeli warplanes bombed what they described as military installations repurposed from civilian infrastructure. Israel's defense minister had announced the strikes, warning, as I am quoting now, anyone who tries to harm Israel will be harmed. And anyone who raises a hand against Israel will have it cut off. The Houthis will continue to pay a heavy price for their actions, quote unquote. One of the targets was reportedly the Galaxy Leader, which is a commercial vessel seized by the Houthi forces last November. Remember, the Galaxy Leader had nothing to do with the Houthis or Israel. It was a commercial car carrier. But in 2023, it was seized by the Houthis during the start of a campaign of attacks on the Red Sea. The vessel was being operated by the Japanese shipping line and was en route India from Turkey when the Houthis used a helicopter to board the carrier. They detained the crew. And it took 2 years of negotiations for the crew to be released. The ship was taken to the coast of Yemen after it was hijacked and has been operated by the Houthis ever since. It was seized because the shipping line's parent firm was co-owned by an Israeli businessman, Ibrahim Ungar. Now, according to the IDF, the Houthis installed radar systems on the ship to track maritime traffic as well as planned attacks on vessels in the Red Sea. The Ras Kanate power station, it was struck because Israel claims it serves as a key electricity hub for Houthi military operations. Israel called it another example of how civilian sites are being militarized by the Yemen-based group. Remember, Israel views the Houthis as part of a broader Iranian-backed network operating against it in the region, a network that includes Hezbollah in Lebanon, militia groups in Syria and Iraq. The Houthis, meanwhile, have hit back. The Houthi military spokesperson said in a televised speech that the group fired a ballistic missile at central Israel's Jaffa area on Sunday, calling it a significant military operation. The missile, dubbed Palestine 2 by the Houthis, was declared a success by their leadership. Israel is yet to confirm any damage or casualties from the strike. Now, the Houthis have repeatedly attacked ships in the Red Sea since late 2023, saying that they act in solidarity with the Palestinians during the Gaza conflict. Earlier this year itself, a US brokered deal had temporarily paused their attacks. But after Israel's recent operations targeting Iranian sites, the Houthis resumed missile and drone strikes. And this latest bombardment by Israel, marking its most extensive action in Yemen since the month of May. That's when joint US-Israeli strikes targeted Houthi infrastructure. Both Israel and the US have struck Houthi ports before, including an American attack in April that killed at least 74 people. And as the tensions flare up once again, Israel has warned that it is ready to impose a naval and air blockade on Yemen if the Houthi attacks continue. And with Israel vowing to escalate further if needed, and the Houthis pledging more missile attacks, this is a very real fear now that this cycle of strikes and retaliation could very well spiral into a wider regional conflict. On to China now, where the country's iron-fisted leader is facing his greatest test yet. A new Communist Party regulation suggesting Xi Jinping may finally be loosening his grip, sparking speculation of delegation, succession, or retreat? The question is, could the once imperious ruler be confronting his own political nightmare?
For years, Xi Jinping has cultivated an aura of unchallenged absolute power, meticulously dismantling rivals and solidifying his position as China's most formidable leader since Mao. Now, a bombshell has detonated at the very core of Chinese power. New Communist Party regulations, quietly passed by the Politburo, are sending shockwaves. These rules are designed to standardize decision-making and empower party coordinative institutes are more than bureaucratic tinkering. The new rules published in the state-run Xinhua demand that party organs plan, deliberate and oversee major policies, tasks one jealously guarded by Xi himself. Analysts are now locked in a fierce debate. Some argue these regulations signal Xi's intention to gradually step back from day-to-day governance, perhaps laying the groundwork for an orderly power transition or even preparing for retirement by the next CPC Congress in 2027 when Xi turns 75 years old. This interpretation is fueled by Xi's recent absence from the BRICS summit in Rio de Janeiro, where Premier Li Qiang represented China, a first for Xi since assuming the presidency.
There's a lot of movement going on in the CCP right now, and recall that, President Xi has consolidated power over the last decade or so, and he's made all of the power concentrated with him. The problem with that is China is failing right now in many respects. So he has all the power, but he will get all the blame. So he's doing one of two things here. Either he is trying to delegate so all of the blame doesn't fall on his shoulders, or the party around him sees that the country is failing in many respects and wants to rearrange or restructure the power arrangement in Beijing.
The very discussion of delegation of power, regardless of its ultimate intent, represents a chink in the armor of a leader previously seen as omnipotent. Amid mounting economic pressures, including the ongoing tariff war with the US and a collapse of the housing market, local governments are straining under debt burdens. Consumer confidence is poor. The world's second largest economy is losing steam. China's policy of dumping cheap goods is now being called out globally, facing economic headwinds. The whispers for clamor for change is slowly gaining traction. Now, this unexpected shift in power dynamics in Beijing could very well be the greatest internal political challenge Xi Jinping has ever faced, shaking the very foundations of his iron rule. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Moving on for now, the Russian President Vladimir Putin has claimed that the BRICS alliance has overtaken the G7 in global economic weight, saying BRICS now accounts for nearly half the world's population and 40% of the global economy. Speaking remotely at the BRICS summit held in Brazil, Putin praised the expanding influence of BRICS. He also emphasized on the role of member countries in the current geopolitical situation. Listen to this.
Let me emphasize that the BRICS countries represent different models of development, religion, unique civilization and culture. And at the same time, they all advocate equality and good neighborliness, the priority of traditional values, high ideals of friendship and harmony, and strive to make a significant contribution to ensure
And to prove his point, Putin referred to the IMF data from 2025, stating that combined GDP figures for the G7 are $57 trillion, whereas BRICS already stands at $77 trillion. He also called on the BRICS countries to step up cooperation in a range of areas, including natural resources, logistics, trade, and finance.
It is necessary to further expand the use of national currencies in mutual payments. The creation of an independent settlement and depository system within BRICS would, it appears, enable faster, more efficient and secure currency transactions. Incidentally, the use of national currencies in trade between our countries has been steadily increasing.
Earlier, BRICS had issued a statement saying that the bloc comprising countries including Brazil, Russia, India, China had serious concerns about the rise of unilateral tariff and non-tariff measures which distort trade, quote unquote. It further said that these were inconsistent with the rules of the World Trade Organization. On the other hand, US President Donald Trump has issued yet another tariff threat. He said that any country aligning themselves with the anti-American policies of BRICS will be charged an additional 10% tariff, quote unquote. He also added that no exceptions to this policy will be made. And speaking on the matter, the US Treasury Secretary said that countries don't make trade talks with America by August 1 can expect tariff rates to return to the levels announced in April.
Of a pause, because I think what's happened is there's a lot of congestion going into the home stretch, and as part of the trade team, what's great about having President Trump on side is he's created maximum leverage. So by telling our trading partners that they could boomerang back to the April 2nd date, I think it's really going to move things along the next couple of days and weeks.
And responding to that, the Kremlin said that the BRICS group of nations had never been working to undermine other countries.
Мы действительно видели такие заявления президента Трампа, но здесь очень важно отметить, что уникальность такого объединения, как БРИКС, заключается в том, что это объединение стран, которые разделяют общие подходы и общее мировоззрение того, как нужно осуществлять сотрудничество, исходя из собственных интересов. И это взаимодействие в рамках БРИКС никогда не было и не будет направлено против каких-то третьих стран.
And on the diplomatic front as well, BRICS seems to be standing out in a way with its unequivocal condemnation of the Pahalgam terror attack in India, military strikes of Israel and America on Iran, or the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Just for context here, the BRICS was founded by Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa last year. It expanded to include Indonesia, Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, and the UAE. And as per reports, BRICS represented over 1/3 of the world's economic growth based on purchasing power parity, and is fast emerging as a bloc for multilateral diplomacy amid violent conflicts and rising tension of the trade wars as well. The question is, will it truly emerge as a viable alternative to platforms like the G7 and the G20 groups of major economies, driven by the agenda of the West, by prioritizing the needs of the global South? Only time will tell.